Support for Wavemakers comes from listeners like you and the Tampa Bay Times. The Pulitzer Prize-winning newspaper is available around the Tampa Bay area and online at tampabay.com. Thanks to the Tampa Bay Times for their support.
Good morning and welcome to Wavemakers with Janet and Tom, a weekly conversation with people making a difference in the Tampa Bay region. I'm Janet.
And I'm Tom.
And running the board today is Oscar-worthy John Dunn. Answering the phones is DJ Spaceship. If you want to join our conversation, you can call us at 813-239-9663. DJ Spaceship will get you through to us. You can also just say hi to him because he's a super cool guy. You can also email us at dj@wmnf.org or text us at 813-433-0885.
Our guest today has been making waves in St. Petersburg government and political circles for decades. Nikki Gaskin-Capehart has worked for two members of Congress and the mayor of St. Pete. Now she's taking on her biggest job yet as president and CEO of the Pinellas County Urban League. Welcome to Wavemakers, Nikki.
Thank you for having me, both of you.
It's great to have you here. Nikki is the first woman to head the league in its 46 years of existence, succeeding the late Reverend Watson Hayes, a towering civil rights figure in Pinellas County who died in 2022. So, Nikki, those are big shoes to fill. Tell us a little bit about what your plans are for the Urban League in the coming years.
Right. They are big shoes to fill, and I definitely want to start by just honoring Reverend Haynes' legacy because he was such a trailblazer in our community, having grown up in the historic gas plant neighborhood, having mentored so many other young professionals throughout his career, just doing outstanding work for many years, and I really do look at it as a privilege to take what he started to the next level with Pinellas County Urban League. And one of the first things that, as a part of my CEO and presidential start, was strategic planning. And for me, with our Vision 2030 plan, working with our board of directors, our staff, our community partners, it was so very important for us to start strong and listen to the community on what they would like to see the direction be for the Urban League over the next 6 to 7 years. So that's where I start. I am a collaborator by nature. That's how I've been able to achieve so much of the things that I have in my career to this point. Even in my last position with the city of St. Petersburg, so much of the department that I started, the Division of Urban Affairs, was based on collaboration and collective impact modeling. So it was important for me to hear from the community as we put together this Vision 2030 for the Urban League.
Well, I know you are still working on this plan.
Yes.
But it is based on some fundamental philosophies, defend democracy, demand diversity, and defeat poverty.
Yes, that's
okay,
our
you're not
national
taking on some
charge.
small issues
right.
there.
That's the national charge.
But that's the national charge,
yes.
But all the urban leagues.
All affiliates have, if you will, a connection to those national, type of charges that come from Mark Morial's leadership. He's been 20 years at the helm of the National Urban League, doing outstanding work. He was mayor in New Orleans for many years. But so what, as you mentioned, yes, we are still in the development stages of our strategic plan. And I believe that a strategic plan is something that should be working. It's not that old school, you develop it, it sits on a shelf in a notebook, or nowadays it sits on a website on a page. But it should be something that's interactive and you're continuing to implement and improve on with partners, with your team, long term.
It's a living document.
A living document is so key.
Now, some of our listeners may recall we had Stanley Gray on the show a few months ago talking about, he's your counterpart in Hillsborough County.
Yes,
He's the head of the Hillsborough County Urban League.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the Hillsborough County Urban League actually went away for a few years, and Stanley Gray is in the process of bringing it back to life, reinvigorating it, refocusing it.
Yes.
That has not been the issue with the Urban League. You all have, for 46 years.
We have been blessed to be in existence for 46 years, and we're really excited to, of course, partner with our counterparts across the Bay because we look at it as a strong regional effort, if you will, for the urban leagues. So, we spent some time with them during the holidays and had a chance to connect with Stanley and the team over here. But we really have been blessed to have 46 years of continuous improvement for the Pinellas County Urban League, starting with a vision, if you will, of a small group of people who wanted to come together. And Mr. Jim Simmons, who is a longtime Tampa resident, was our first executive director and CEO of the Urban League. And I definitely want to honor his all of the work and heart and determination that he put into the Urban League. And we're actually getting ready to do an Urban League documentary talking about the story of the Pinellas County Urban League, starting with, the leadership of those who felt it important to make this type of impact and movement that would be sustained for this long, so that I can come in as the first woman 46 years later and then take it to the next level.
So 1978 was when the Urban League of Pinellas County was established. Mm-hmm. What was going on then that made it necessary?
So a lot of the things that, at that time there was an outstanding group of people. And one of the ladies, we honored her most recently at our gala last year, Miss Jean Davies, outstanding group of women and men who saw the need in Pinellas County to really focus on some of the pre-employment training needs in the community at that time. They received a CETA grant in 1977. And that's when Mr. Simmons was first appointed as the president and CEO, and then went to the National Urban League to become the 117th affiliate. But there were some major needs back then around training for youth, around training and development. And so that really gave them the excitement to go forward with that type of movement, so that we could really have an impact long term in jobs and placement. And that's one of our focus areas as a part of Vision 2030. So that's still important today.
Yeah, and we want to go back and definitely go through those pillars, because we can talk a little bit about the pillars of the Vision 2030.
Right.
But historically, thinking back on that time when the Urban League was founded, you were around then. You were born and raised in St. Pete, so you were living then.
I'm a native. I was 4 years old.
But you were growing up during that period of time. And what was it like? I mean, because St. Pete was, historically very segregated.
Oh, yeah.
And so what was your experience like?
Well, one of the things that, for me, having grown up as a native in St. Petersburg and being a Gen Xer, so I'm 50, and I've seen a lot of different changes in our community. And I know that during that time, there was a major need, if you will, around equity, just like there is now, and the importance of making sure that our community had opportunities that, segregation at times did not offer. So organizations like the Pinellas County Urban League, the Pinellas Opportunity Council, all of these organizations added to what the NAACP was doing. Of course, some of the other trailblazers like the Courageous 12 in our community, who were those police officers who sued the city of St. Petersburg to be able to patrol all of the neighborhoods, not just the black neighborhoods. So as a part of what we at the Pinellas County Urban League want to be a part of long term in being advocates for equity, inclusion, diversity, systemic change in our community, it's important for us to honor where we've come from, but keep an eye towards progress for the future.
And if you're just tuning in, you're listening to Wavemakers on WMNF, and our guest is Nikki Capehart, and she is the CEO of the Urban League of Pinellas County. If you have any questions or you'd like to make any comments, you can email us at dj@wmnf.org or call us at 813-239-9663 and tell us a little bit about what your experience was like growing up in St. Pete. And if you've had any interaction with the Urban League, let us know. 813-239-9663.
Janet mentioned how segregated St. Petersburg was, and really still is. The legacy of segregation continues to this day, I think. So much of the black population still lives south of Central Avenue. And it was literally against the law in St. Petersburg. I think a lot of people don't even
live in
realize the
certain
history.
areas.
In certain areas, black people could not live there.
Well, that was across the country. I mean, that has so much to do with redlining throughout the country. And St. Petersburg, of course, was, if you will, another example of that. And one thing that I want to also make sure that we point out is we are the Pinellas County Urban League, not the St. Petersburg Urban League. So we make sure that we are covering throughout the county. That's Clearwater, that's Tarpon Springs. We might have started in St. Petersburg, but we have expanded to be a part of Pinellas County for a long time now. So
that's a big county to cover.
It is a huge county to cover with a lot of opportunities in all of these other counties for us to really have a transformative impact in those underserved communities throughout the county.
We were talking about what the charge of the Urban League was, and it was about from its inception creating diversity and inclusion and all those things that we're talking about now. That's still your charge,
yes.
Based on what the national goals are. It's an interesting climate that you're working in now. What is that like, and how does that affect the work that the Urban League does?
It's a very interesting climate. For me, it makes me that much more resolved to do this type of work, because we can't allow the climate to, effectively make us lose hope in what we need to do, and particularly as community leaders, knowing how difficult it may be for us to continue working in spaces where, we talk about the importance of inclusion, we talk about the importance of equity, we talk about the importance of diversity, just like we said with the 3Ds earlier: demand democracy, defend democracy, demand diversity, and defeat poverty. All of those things are very important to who we are, and that's why we focus on the pillars of being a champion of education and community leadership. These are our 4 pillars, if you don't mind, if I were to just share with you as a part of our Vision 2030 and as we continue to move this plan forward. But we really look to be a champion for education and community leadership. And like when we started, we want to be an anchor in the job training, placement, and entrepreneurship space. We talked about gas plant a little bit. Those are some generational opportunities for building generational wealth. And we want to make sure that the community is ready for that and that we help develop that pipeline. We also are a hub of housing and community development, and then being a leader in the health, impact, and quality of life of our communities. So those are all areas where we have programs that currently exist, and we want to expand on that even further.
What does the process look like for developing your 2030 plan?
So we right now are in the process of continuing our survey. We've been really blessed to have over 700 respondents to our survey.
Great.
Yes, we were so excited about it. And so now we're synthesizing that data, of course, listening to our constituents and our clients and our partners around how we can better expand those pillars in those areas, and be accountable, of course, to our funders, who we have several different funders from the state, local, and even some federal connected programs through the National Urban League. So we really are excited about the opportunity to expand on this Vision 2030 and then implement it in a way that can be impactful in our community.
Well, let's talk about those pillars in a little bit more detail, the programs that you have. So the education and community leadership. What is happening in that sphere for you guys right now?
So in the education piece, we're working with a state program in youth crime and intervention and prevention. So we do some educational enhancement. We also are pulling together and working with, of course, our school system. But in post-secondary education, we expect to also include a fellowship. That's one of the things that I helped to start while at the City of St. Petersburg. We had under our My Brothers and Sisters Keeper Fellowship that was connected to the Obama administration. So we saw some great advancement in training in that. And so the succession planning needed in our community making sure that people are really ready for the next level of opportunities is going to allow us to have fellowships that would help to train people in emotional intelligence and all of the different things that will help them to become a better community leader. So that's just some of the ways that we connect. We have summer programs that work with our youth in enhancement and in jobs. So those are some of the ways that we will continue to expand in the community education and leadership space.
And then what about also, you talked about job training, placement, and entrepreneurship. So what is that program like?
We are really excited about some new developments in that area. There'll be a big announcement this week about entrepreneurship dollars.
Oh, you don't want to make it on our show? Come on now.
I'm kind of making it, actually. I just won't say exactly the name of it and who our funder is. But we have an entrepreneurship center in place, and we're really excited about expanding this for opportunities. We'll have a trade mission that's connected to it so that we can, make sure that these entrepreneurs are really ready for opportunities at gas plant, opportunities and other major developments, working with them from startup all the way through accelerator stage, all types of businesses. So we started that and had really good success in the city of St. Petersburg in the former department that I ran in urban affairs. And we're proud of that entrepreneurial ecosystem, working with the eqiuity Institute, Pinellas County Economic Development, Tampa Bay Black Business Investment Corporation, CDC of Tampa, all of the different partners, Mount Zion Human Services, who come together.
Oh, that is a wide net.
Yes, we have been working on this now. Actually, we started and we go back now 2014. We started one of our first small business salons at the Job Corps there with my girlfriend, Shara Anderson. And she's so amazing. She was with Bill Nelson's office back then. And we had this idea and worked with our community partners, and we called them the Small Business Salon. And these were entrepreneurs who would come get information, make connections at this event, and then, take that to the next level. And we started that many years ago, and we want to see that continue.
Can you share any success stories of businesses that went through the program and taken off?
Yeah, we have several success stories. Some of them are actually, contractors with the city of St. Petersburg, with state agencies. They've received their certifications in MBE and DBE.
Oh, great.
Oh, yeah. We have some that are working with the different school boards. So we're really proud. And then, of course, we have some that will be major connection to some of the opportunities on the Deuces and in gas plant right now as well.
And we definitely want to talk more about the gas plant and Deuces after we finish with your pillars.
The rest of our pillars.
Are there any businesses that you work with on that segment, the placement and entrepreneurship? Anybody you want to give a shout out to?
Definitely. So the anchor piece that we're looking at, we're really excited to be working with some of the hospitals and hoping to really expand through the Foundation for a Healthy St. Petersburg, the Anchors Collaborative, so that we would be able to help with the pipeline necessary for healthcare. We also see a need when it comes to financial services. We have so many of our board members that we're able to serve for some of their employment needs. But there's also really important for us to connect to our teens when it comes to soft skills building, making sure that they have the certifications that they would need, especially in technology and the STEM fields. So all of those kind of connect to where we want to go with job placement and training and entrepreneurship under that second pillar. Then housing and community development, that's a huge issue. Housing is such a huge issue. So what's happening on that front? It's huge. So right now we have our low-income housing energy and assistance program called LIHEAP, and we also have our weatherization program. And Congresswoman Castor just helped with bringing some more money to the area through the bipartisan infrastructure law to allow us to expand the weatherization programming. But we really want to get more into housing development and mixed use development as well. We own our own building, and there are opportunities there for us to look at maybe using that building for its a much better, highest and best use than what it is right now as office space. And you'll see that around the country in a lot of communities where many of these older buildings are being converted into space for housing and office and retail. So we really are excited about seeing how our hub of housing and community development would allow us to be able to sustain our organization for many years to come outside of government grants.
And then your last hub is, and I don't have it in front of me. Health impact and quality of life.
Yes. So right now we have our ACA navigation program where we're helping people to get affordable health care. But we are looking to really expand that. When we talk about quality of life for our community, so much is connected to physical, mental, and financial health. So we really want to make sure that we're connecting to the community. And these are some of the things we heard back in our survey responses as well, is that, you can build community around healthy eating. You can build community around healthy activities, making sure that people have opportunities for walking clubs, for yoga. I'm really proud of the second week, maybe third week, when I started with the Urban League, we started chair yoga for our team. A lot of them had never done that before. So Mindful Movement of Florida came in, and now every Monday we have what I call our Mindful Mondays chair yoga session at noon with our staff, so that they have an opportunity to not only take care of themselves better as we take care of the community. So, and we're also sponsoring our WOW, which is Workout Wednesdays. We're expanding that in South and North County and Pinellas, so that we can work with several of our community partners to expand those opportunities for healthy activities, demonstrations for cooking, and then financial empowerment too, all in the same session, hour and a half, and provide child care for people.
That is a lot of stuff and a lot to expand on for 2030 over the next 6 years. So we'll be looking forward to seeing how things go for you.
Yeah.
We'll be back right after this with Nikki Capehart, who is the CEO of the Urban League of Pinellas County. We're going to talk a little bit more about housing and what's happening in Pinellas County and St. Pete. But first, let's hear a little bit more about some other excellent programming here on WMNF.
Jazz is alive at WMNF. Tune in Sunday evenings at 8 for Colors of Jazz at our new time, featuring new releases from new artists, old favorites, international jazz from Europe, Asia, and Canada, covering everything from big band swing to bop to fusion. We play it all, plus specials celebrating the music of giants like Ellington, Miles Davis, Pat Metheny, Quincy Jones, Chick Corea, even Frank Zappa. We play the music you'll hear no place else on the radio. Check out our interviews with local jazz musicians. Jazz is what America sounds like, and it's yours to listen to come Sunday evening. If you can't catch us live, play it back from the archives.
So we are back with our guest, Nikki Capehart. And we have been talking about the thorny issue of diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI for short, which wasn't thorny until just recently. In fact, Governor DeSantis was an advocate for DEI in the universities when he first started as governor, and now the DEI programs have been unfunded in the college systems. But diversity, equity, and inclusion is a very broad term, and it also comes together in another subject we've been talking about, which is the gas plant. Which the gas plant is a historically black neighborhood in St. Petersburg, which was essentially wiped out for the development of Tropicana Field. And now the Rays won a new ballpark, and I know you worked on that project when you were working for Mayor Rick Kreisman. So tell us what you saw, what you hope will happen with the redevelopment plan, because it's not just building a new ballpark for the Rays, right?
Right. It's much bigger than that. Like
Tell
I
us
said,
how it figures into the whole diversity, equity, and inclusion
work that we're doing.
Work that you're doing, yes.
So just a little more history on that. When I was with the Heisman administration, we understood the importance of even making sure that the RFP was done in an equitable manner. So we worked with Bloomberg Harvard early on through their city leadership initiative. And our project, and several mayors had the opportunity to select projects throughout the country. Mayor Kreisman selected the equitable redevelopment of the historic gas plant as our project. So we had 10 people that went to New York with us to work on how we could make sure that RFP was written in a manner that would honor those who were displaced, who are still here and have lived experience, having lived there in historic gas plant. So we were very intentional from day one about how to approach this project so that it would have diversity, equity, and inclusion at its core. And so having worked with that team way back, then to develop an equitable RFP, we're now at a point to where we can see the fruition of that with this second administration working on this project and saying that equity is important. We do, as a community, have to make sure that we are at the table and hold those developers and the city accountable for making sure that those equitable, if you will, things that were written in the RFP and that were promised happen.
And the current mayor, Ken Welch, grew up in the gas plant area.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very personal issue.
It is
for him. Mm-hmm. What do you think of the plan so far?
So I think the plans so far are definitely moving forward in a good manner. I also think that we have to, from the community, make sure that we stay involved in the intricacies of that. So, the $50 million equity plan, it's important that we are involved in how that will move forward. I've also been very vocal in saying that I believe it's absolutely important that there's home ownership as a part of the development. When we talk about youth, talked about the needs of affordable housing. I think affordable housing when it comes to rental is important, but also affordable housing when it comes to ownership is important. When you talk about honoring what happened on that site so many years later, I would love to see for our seniors like Miss Gwen Reese, who's been such an griot for our community, telling the story and having lived it. But for her and other seniors like her to possibly be able to move back to that site in something like senior housing, legacy style, like has happened at Jordan Park. So, from a community standpoint, our leaders, we really have to make sure that we step up and honor what we know could really be long-term, sustained, generational impact on the site.
And have you've reached out to the mayor to talk about these things?
We definitely make sure that we keep those conversations ongoing, not just with the mayor, but it's important to do that with Ray's Hines as well.
That's the development group that's actually going to be executing this plan, not just building a ballpark. Make that clear. It's also
definitely. That's the hard work, is holding them accountable to making sure that they actually do what they say they're going to do. Because people can say anything.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons the community has so much distrust around projects like this, because we understand the importance of promises, but we know that so many people feel like those promises have been broken time and time again. So as a part of our responsibility as community leaders, particularly in organizations like the Urban League, who are working on economic development and community development, not just social services, but long-term generational community change. And like I like to say, wealth building, so that, as a part of making sure that people are bringing more money into their homes, whether they're working and they also have a business or what we sometimes call a side hustle that can become, something that's traditional, that we can make sure they have all of the wraparound that they need so that their family can increase their income. And then their youth are in programs that are really going to the next level, but so is the parent. So all of those are connected to, gas plant and so many of the other developments that we like to see, even along the Deuces.
And affordable housing, that's part of that gas plant project, is to make sure that there's affordable housing. But you mentioned that the Urban League has an interest in getting involved in building and developing. So how are you going to do that? Where are you thinking?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked that, because let me tell you, that's one of the things that, I study urban leagues from all around the country. And there are other urban leagues that have been in this space for a while. Down in Miami, T. Willard Fair, who has been an urban league leader there for 60 years.
Wow.
He said the other day that he hasn't had a fundraiser in 30 years because they had become a major developer in that area. And so they have that to sustain the organization. And then they're able to employ residents of their developments. So all of those things connect. And that's what I would like to see for our urban league in Pinellas County, is that we could really take the opportunity to be a developer in our community and use that so that it can infuse our programs and connect to what we want to do with our youth all the way through to our seniors. So, those are the types of things that I'm studying on a regular basis. And like I said to you before, it feels like 4 years as opposed to 4 months. But, I know that there's great work ahead of us, and we're trying to pace ourselves, the team that I'm bringing on board. But we got, some heavy work to do.
Well, it's difficult building affordable housing right now because of the cost of construction, because of the cost of land, permitting. I saw former Senator Jeff Brandes talking on this very subject on Friday at the Tampa Tiger Bay Club, and he was very critical of a project that the St. Pete City Council just approved, which involves spending $19 million on 24 units.
Yeah.
His point being, how can that be affordable? And he calls it it's going to become a case study for worst practices. That's a lot of money.
It is
could
a lot
be
of
used in
money
ways that would be maybe have more impact. What do you think of that project?
Yeah, so Sankofa is a very important project to our community. It's much more than affordable housing. It is community building. It is bringing a corridor back to life that at once was, if you will, a black Main Street until the interstate came through. It is bringing purchasing power back to that corridor, which is also a Main Street, a Florida Main Street. So that initial phase is the beginning. And we expect to be able to see commercial development that will follow that as well. So I would hate to have that be the only narrative around that investment, because what we'd like to see for that portion of the corridor is that it's an epicenter, if you will, for making it a destination for people to come and spend money on the Deuces and make sure that they are investing long term in those needs. Yes, housing is very important, is expensive now, but it's also important for us to look at ways that, as we're being good stewards of the community money, that we might have to change our design a little bit. That's something that we got to do better from the city side and the community side. We might need to be a little more flexible and agile as we're looking at these developments over years, because they might take a little revisioning so that we could, better design them for what our needs are. But this is just the start. So that development in particular, we're expecting much more from it than that.
That's the kind of development that the Urban League could use to build on and get more going. Because the Deuces was, as you say, it was a thriving place at the time. It was neglected. And St. Pete, of course, right now is just on fire. There's so much development going on, yet the Deuces doesn't seem to people,
right,
seem to be neglecting it. Right?
There's years of, lack, if you will. There's a lack of investment that's obvious. And of course, now we're so glad to have our CRA in place. That's one of the things that we started.
Community redevelopment area.
Yes, our community reinvestment area that now is over $16 million, I believe, the last time we checked annually, that can be invested. Started at about 460.
Wow.
Yeah, back in 2015.
You had a hand in starting that CRA, right?
Very proud of having a hand in that, working so closely with community folks, Gypsy Gallardo, Miss Gwendolyn Reese, Pastor Lewis Murphy. I start naming people and I'll
That's
get
okay,
in trouble.
name them.
Even at the city end, Rick Smith, who was one of those ones who helped to write the CRA. He's no longer with the city of St. Petersburg now, I believe in Gainesville. We worked so hard. So Mayor Kreisman and Deputy Mayor Tomlin really out of the gate. And that's another one too that I want to make sure that I don't forget is at that same time we were writing the CRA, we were also talking about the importance of a need for a disparity study. And we're so proud now to have an Office of Supplier Diversity at the city because of that disparity study that was done and started when we were there. So, what you start in certain administrations is really important that it transcends administrations and that work keeps going. But we're really proud of what was started with SCRA so that now we can have that investment vehicle, but we have to be intentional about the way that the money is spent so that it really is felt in the community.
And we talk about CRAs on this show quite a bit, shockingly. But what they are, for if you don't know and you're listening, is they're areas where the property tax revenue increases are invested back into the area where they were collected instead of going into a general fund and distributed throughout a municipality or jurisdiction.
And we got to remember to leverage them with the federal CRAs because, I started in community development banking 100 years ago with AmSouth Bank before it became Regions. And, when we really make that effective, we get the federal CRA to connect with the local CRA, and then you have the impact in the community that really could change lives.
And what are you hoping that money will be spent on? Because over here in Tampa, also going through a development boom, and some of their CRAs, they have so much cash, they're starting to spend it on projects that they are going to build some affordable housing in downtown Tampa.
Good.
The CRA is going to do that. What is the St. Pete's CRA going to do with that money?
Well, one of the things that they had already started doing around the affordable housing piece was working with, homeowners in the area, but also the training aspect of it. So St. Pete Works was a part of the CRA that was really important because we didn't want to just focus on places. We also wanted to focus on people because, as you know, on the other end of the deuces for us, we went through a time where we lost the Sweet Bay and then we lost the Walmart, all a part of Tangerine Plaza. But you really have to focus on people in the community as well and building them up and making sure that they have those opportunities. So I like to see the CRA focus on housing opportunities, but also focus on people and entrepreneurship, just like we're doing at the Urban League, so that it really is having a broader reach in the community that'll be sustainable, because you can build it and people will not come. You don't necessarily build it and they'll come.
Right. So you worked for the previous administration, and now you're on the outside of the administration. How do you think things are going with Ken Welch from your standpoint? Is he continuing the work that you were doing and that Mayor Kreisman was doing?
I think I see a lot of the things that they're doing at the city that is a continuation. As I just mentioned, the Office of Supplier Diversity is one that I'm really excited to see the continuation of. I think every mayor wants to make a name for themselves and not necessarily do everything that the prior mayor has done. So I don't expect that they would do everything that we did. But there are some great things that we started that, of course, I would like to see more focus on out of the city. For instance, our My Brothers and Sisters Keeper initiative, I think is one of the ones that I would love to see them do a little more around.
What is that?
So we started that, it was connected to President Obama's initiative, his My Brother's Keeper initiative, but we added sisters to it. And so as a result, it was an opportunity for us to work with families and professionals connected to that program, giving them connections to jobs, but also pathway programs, what we call opportunity pathway programs, so that the families, whatever they might need, childcare, uniforms, all of those things to change their family's trajectory economically, they would have that. So those are some of the programs that, we started and that I was really proud of. But we love to see more of that come out of the administration, and I'm sure they're working on it as they open their new Office of Equity, and they have their interim equity director right now, Carl Lavender.
You are listening to Wavemakers on WMNF with Janet and Tom, and our guest today is Nikki Capehart?
Gaskin Capehart.
Nikki Gaskin Capehart.
Names.
Nikki Gaskin Capehart, who is the CEO of the Urban League of Pinellas County. WMNF is listener-supported radio, and I'm going to take a break right now and give you some ideas on how you might be able to support WMNF.
Wow, now that's a big RV. But when's the last time you used it? Just imagine all the room you'll gain when you move that motorhome, RV, or other vehicle getting in the way. WMNF accepts cars, trucks, RVs, and more as a form of support. Plus, donating is easy and the pickup is free. Go to WMNFcar.org for more.
Another one of the pillars, you're just joining us, please call us if you'd like and engage in the conversation here with Nikki Gaskin Capehart, the president and CEO of the Pinellas County Urban League. If you'd like to join the conversation, please call us at 813-239-9663, or you can email us at dj@wmnf.org. Now, one of the national goals of the Urban League is to defend democracy. We haven't talked that much about that part of it. So how do you incorporate that into your vision plan? And how are you going to help us defend democracy?
I'm so glad you mentioned that. So as a part of when we talk about our 4 pillars, and we actually have 3 themes, too, that I want to make sure that 4 themes that I share in is strategic community empowerment, sustainable social enterprise. I talked a little bit about enhancing our program and service footprint, and then fiscal operation and responsibility. But when we talk about defending democracy, we really will continue to focus on, and this is something the Urban League used to work on before anyway, which was voter engagement. And making sure that we are connected to opportunities for the community to, be involved in the their voting rights, and making sure that they have all of the information if they are needing absentee ballots. We actually have an event coming up that we're working with. It's called Super Bowl Saturday in 2 weekends. Just making sure that people are engaged and understand what they need to be super voters. I've always had this thing about saying that, I wish that everybody was as proud to be a super voter as I think they should be. Because, having worked, for congressional members for years, right. I remember taking my daughter with me to the polls. Yep. And making sure that she saw the process early on and understood how important it was to be engaged, and that if she wasn't, that was something that she was losing. You have to exercise that right to vote. Because it's so very important. So that's one of the ways that we really want to plug into, how the National Urban League is talking about the 3 Ds in defending democracy, and making sure that we show up in our communities with us, other advocates across the country. Souls to the Polls is another one that we are very proud of having been a part of for many years. And we work with the Divine Nine organizations. I'm a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, where our social action initiatives are very important for us to stay engaged on a regular basis with defending our democracy.
And you'll be doing voter registration drives, just trying to get more people?
We will work with, absolutely. We will be working with, we aren't an actual third-party registering organization, but we continue to work with the Supervisor of Election, League of Women Voters, a lot of our other partners to, have people not only register, but that they stay engaged and actually vote. And again, become super voters, because that's so important.
The Urban League often takes a slightly different approach. You have your own niche, which seems to be a little more on the economics, right?
Well, that's where I'm heading. A lot of urban leagues are getting to that point, to where they're focusing a lot more on community development and economic development, as opposed to what sometimes I've said that, we want to focus on eradicating and reducing poverty, not maintaining it. And so when we talk about from the national level is defeating poverty, one of the ways that we do that is by equipping our community and our families to increase their income, to increase their skill set, to, if they have a business, to make sure that, they are scaling properly and that their capacity is growing, so that they are tapping into and not being afraid of loans that may be available to them so that they can grow. We have a lot of solopreneurs. And we want to get to the point to where we have people who are employing other people. Because if you're in the community and you're of the community, 9 times out of 10, you're going to employ the community.
Right.
It makes it easier when you are a business on a corridor in underserved neighborhoods if you have more jobs to offer, because then neighbors can walk to their job. It makes it that much easier. When we talk about the deuces, the importance of housing like that is 5-minute walkability, so that people can connect to that purchasing power and spend money on their corridor and not have to drive.
Well, and all those things that you're talking about, which are so holistic, but it is also about systemic change.
Yes.
Starting from the economic standpoint and creating opportunity for people.
Yes. And structural racism study was one of the other things under our prior administration that we were able to work on. And a lot of those recommendations with USF and some of the other partners really have helped to push us in a direction for the change that we would like to see.
Let's spend a little bit of time talking about how you got to where you are.
Oh, okay. It seemed like it was overnight, no.
Wave makers are not born, they're grown.
It took a long time.
It takes
You're right.
a while.
But
Yeah.
wait, before we do that, we have a caller, so let's go to the phones. We've got Solar in St. Pete, who has a comment that. So let's go to Solar in St. Pete. You are on the line.
Yes, greetings. I want to applaud Nikki for what she's doing, because that K-pop name go back a long time of fighting for true democracy. And for her to take that mantle and doing what she's doing, I like to applaud Sister K-pop.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Because that name go back a long, as a legacy of standing up for true democracy in the St. Petersburg area, and for equity as well.
Tell us more about that.
Thank you.
Solar, are you there?
Yes.
Okay,
right.
It sounds like you are very familiar with the Capehart name and St. Pete, so we appreciate you calling.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for calling. Appreciate it very much. So you grew up in St. Pete.
I did.
And
all over the city of St. Petersburg. Yeah. So when I talk about the Deuces, I'm I'm nostalgic about it because I grew up in that area. My grandmother had a house right off of the Deuces, and we still have that home. She was the flip lady. I think a lot of people will.
The flip lady, what does that mean?
So the flip lady, and when I explain it, I know there are people who know what that is, but when I explain it to people who aren't aware, I use the example of a neighborhood woman, matriarch figure, who ran out of her home something similar to a bodega. So, flips for us, she sold candy, flips, pickles, different things. So it was like we had our own little convenience store in my grandmother's home for many years. So I grew up with an entrepreneurial spirit of having run the Flip Ladies operation.
Oh, okay.
And so
That's
that
great.
really, for me, it showed early on for me the ability to not be afraid of my entrepreneurial spirit, but to lean into it.
In your community.
In my community, knowing people who, they still call me the Flip Lady's granddaughter, and I'm 50 years old. And so...
Now, just to be clear, a flip is...
So a flip is frozen Kool-Aid or juice that sometimes has fruit in it. And so it's like in a little cup. It's, of course, very refreshing during the summer when it's hot and kids are out playing. There are still Flip Ladies around, and, they make this frozen treat. I remember having some for 10 cents. We had some for 25 cents, and then we had some for even bigger than that. But my grandmother, who I lost when she was 68 years old, was
young.
Yeah, very young. But she was one of those women who made me realize that I could do anything in my power, because she was literally afraid of nothing.
Are there flip ladies still around?
There are flip ladies still around. And those are those entrepreneurs in our community that we can learn from.
Right.
And that's why it's so important for me when we teach entrepreneurship now to make sure that we meet people where they are. Meet people where they are, and they might be really good at baking, they might be good at other things, but there's a passion and an opportunity for growth with all of those people in our community.
Well, Nikki, we have another love letter for you. This is from Donald Royer in New Tampa, who says, "Kudos to Nikki. Great to see young movers at the helm."
Oh,
So
I'm young. Thank
All
you.
of us in this room, I want to tell you
It's
that.
all relative, I guess.
Us three folks here.
Thank you.
So then you went on to college. You went to FAMU and the University of South
I
Florida.
did.
And then you worked for members of Congress. Now, was that you started off at a bank, I think.
Right.
And then you went to... Go ahead.
Well, the one thing that I'll say, even before starting in the banking industry, is I started as an intern with the Inroads program here in Tampa Bay area. And it really, for me, that's one of the reasons why we like to focus on our youth opportunities, because it set the environment and the tone for me early on in a professional environment.
What is Inroads? I'm not familiar with that.
So Inroads is a minority development national internship program that at that time worked primarily with the finance industry and engineering. I actually worked, and I know I'm dating myself with this, I worked with Barnett Bank as an intern back in like 87. And so all of that really helped to prepare me throughout my career in graduating from USF after having been at Florida A&M.
Barnett Bank, for any of you who moved here recently, is now Bank of America. It was acquired over and over again, and then now is Bank of America. But in the 80s, it was like the big local bank.
It really was. And it was my start, and for me, having done that and then going to AmSouth Bank and starting out in community development banking, working on CRAs on the other side, really allowed me now in this role to have seen so many different things in small business development and housing and all of the things that I'm now working on this other side. So I'm really excited to have had that type of a start that allowed me to get to where I am now.
When you've been in government and politics for a while, how does it feel to not be in it?
It feels great. I'm going to be honest. It feels absolutely great. This position, when I really prayed about putting my name in the hat, because when Reverend Haynes passed, I knew before that he wanted me to come back. And it took a lot of people talking to me about the opportunity and whether or not I should consider it. And I'm so glad that I did, because it's so fulfilling. I've never had a role that I felt like encompassed every single thing that I wanted to do from a passion standpoint. And I have a motto that's passion, power, and purpose. And I feel fulfilled every day in this role. Now, are there challenges? Yes, there are many challenges. But I know that I'm supposed to be here. And this is the work that I'm supposed to be doing as I honor the legacy of Reverend Haynes, but build my own.
Well, they are lucky to have you.
And how did you make the shift from banking into politics and government?
So, well, it was definitely, it was not a straight and narrow path. So I started again in banking. But then when I had my daughter, I decided I didn't want to travel anymore. I was going to AmSouth, to Birmingham a lot with AmSouth. And I just, at that time, decided to purchase an income tax franchise. So this is my second time being in entrepreneurship, but I purchased an income tax franchise, left the bank, did that for many years. While doing that, one of my good colleagues, Charlie Justice, at the time was at USF Alumni Board with me, told me about Jim Davis's need for someone in St. Petersburg. And I put my name in the hat for that position, started working for Jim Davis. And then, of course, he ran for governor against Charlie Crist back then. He lost that race, and I had an opportunity to work for another nonprofit in between there. And then when Congresswoman Castor won the seat, she asked me to come work for her. And then after that, I actually went to the Urban League for the first time for 1 year under Reverend Haynes. He recruited me from Congresswoman Castor's office.
So that's why he wanted you back.
Well, yes. And so I definitely worked hard with him for that 1 year. But during that time, Mayor Kreisman asked me to come over to the city and work with him. And that's where I went as his, I think, third appointee, and had a great career there for 8 years. But when I left the city, I decided to go back in entrepreneurship as consulting, and then now I'm here.
So if you're wondering, listeners, how you become a wave maker, it's not always a straight path.
It is not.
In the last few seconds, how do people get in touch with the Urban League, and how do they get involved? We got about 20 seconds.
Please reach out to us at Pinellas County Urban League, PCUL.org. You can follow us on all the socials. We are really doing the best that we can to get that information out there. And I just want to thank all of you. I'm such a fan of WMNF, and particularly the Gospel Classic Hour and now Wave Makers.
Excellent.
So I will be renewing my membership ASAP.
And,
Excellent.
And please do the same, listeners.
Stay tuned for Alternative Radio up next, followed by It's the Music with Harrison Nash. This is WMNF.